One of the biggest impacts of this pandemic has been on our educational system. COVID has created immense challenges to education in our country in so many ways: physical, emotional, logistical, and even political. Hello, and welcome to Living Well with Robin Stoloff, empowering you to live a healthier life. Joining us now is someone who knows all too well about the pandemic's effects on our education. So excited to welcome President of Stockton University, Dr. Harvey Kesselman. Thanks so much for being here.
I'm very, very pleased to be here and excited to be with you. I haven't seen you in a bit, and
It
I'm
has
looking
been.
forward to having a chat.
Haven't seen anyone in a bit, unfortunately, right? Well, let me just say you hold the unique distinction of being the only sitting university president who was in the inaugural class of the institution he serves. That's incredible. So, congratulations on that. That's a Guinness Book record, I think, something like that.
Well, some folks have said that, you don't plan that when you come in entering a school, the first class in school. You don't think, oh, by the way, I'll be the president down there some 40 years later. So it's not something you think about,
Well, you
nor do
certainly
you
did
plan
it.
for it, nor do you
Well,
plan for it.
Well,
So
it's something that you are well deserving of it. You've been with
thank you.
Stockton in various roles for 4 decades now, president since 2016, and you have seen the institution become a university, expand to new communities, new campuses, including Atlantic City, and you have also faced many challenges. But I have to ask you, was there anything that ever could have prepared you for a global pandemic during your tenure at Stockton?
It is something that would never cross one's mind that this could happen, and as quickly as it happened. I mean, if you think about when we first heard about it and how quickly it spread to the United States and Jersey, and completely, shut down the world. I am fortunate and blessed to have been in the same place, but I've been in many different roles. So I'm pretty experienced in the concept of higher education, meaning I was VP for Student Affairs, I was VP for Admin and Finance, I was the Provost and Executive Vice President, Dean of School of Education, all of those different roles that I've had, but nothing, absolutely nothing prepares you for a pandemic, particularly one that has been so, almost comprehensive in it shut down everything that we do. And I've never seen a campus go from the vibrant campus, on one day in March, and 4 days later, completely empty. I mean, it was absolutely incredulous, quite frankly,
Yeah.
and challenging. And I can't overstate how the faculty and staff how much they pulled together, went from an institution. Remember, Stockton is a face-to-face institution.
Yes.
95% of our courses are face-to-face, or certainly were, okay? And all of our faculty, that's where their pedagogical skills are in a face-to-face education. And at the beginning of spring break last March, I think it was March 9th, March 10th, whatever it was, right around there, I announced we're shutting down because, Rutgers announced, a couple other ones
Sure.
going to move out. And then they had 5 days to, go from face to face to online. And we limped through the end of the term through gallant efforts by not just our faculty and staff, but our students, because our students signed up for face to face. And I mean, and that they had to also pivot. It was incredible pivoting that was occurring simultaneously to the unknown aspect of, how is COVID going to affect people if they get it, or their family members get it. So all of those intervening variables, cause great fear and great
Yes, of
concern.
course. I think we'll look back in our lives and say, how did we even get through that? I mean,
Exactly.
it was a shock to the entire world, and we all had to figure it all out. So, what were those first days like? Was it just a
Eerie.
scramble? Did you have to meet all the time? What,
Oh
what
my
did you have to
goodness.
do?
We were meeting. And when I say we, my key cabinet members, myself, and some other key players, the heads of the unions, the heads of the faculty, student senate, those kinds of head of the faculty senate. We were meeting literally 8, 9, 10 times a day, because we were guided by CDC guidelines, Department of Health, federal as well as state, FDA, all the different agencies that were coming out with different kinds of information. And then, of course, you add the almost the competitive nature of the media that's coming out with different interpretations of what we're going on, and you have to try to cut to the chase, find the facts within it, and make decisions that work for Stockton. Because we were uniquely, at least I always took the position that we were uniquely positioned. We were different than the other ones. We've always grown horizontally, and I'll explain the difference, rather than vertically. So I didn't have to worry about high-rise dormitories. Our dormitories have lots of singles, lots of doubles. We have lots of space between them. So I kept saying that Stockton could weather this storm better than many of our sister colleges and universities because of we have a 1,600-acre campus. Okay, we have a large campus. We're not on top of each other. We have a lot of space. We have always been flexible because that's just the nature of Stockton. We were founded to be that kind of an institution. So we're adaptable. We've always been the least reliant on funding from the state. So as a result, we're the least reliant on the state. So we've always been, so that's the positive. The only positive of being, we're not anymore, but we've been fortunate the last few years, but the only positive of being the least funded is you're also the least reliant. So
Right.
what I was able, to, convince the governor and his staff, and it was, let Stockton be flexible when it comes to the colleges and universities, because I always believed that the students were as safe here, if not safer here, than they were for many of them when they went home. Particularly those who went from North Jersey or more urban environments where there wasn't the kind of technological support, there wasn't the kind of even medical support. Remember, I have 2 hospitals on this campus.
Right.
And
Exactly.
we have our urgent care center at the Atlantic City campus. So we've always had, a lot of medical support if we ever need that kind of assistance. We also have space, and that one of the things to control the pandemic was social distancing, and so our doubles became singles, and we were, and our triples became doubles. And so
Oh my, I can't imagine coordinating all that. I just
it was
cannot
incredible.
imagine.
And,
Yes.
and it had to be done in days. It wasn't like that normally takes months to coordinate.
Sure.
That. And so we were like every day. There were times I was waking up. Everyone knows that everyone here knows I'm an early riser. 4 is when I normally wake up. Like I'm back to 4 now. But for that first 6 months, it was 2. I mean, I couldn't even sleep,
goodness,
worrying about. Because you
Of course.
worry about, you got young people here, you've got your staff. We have 10,000 students, 3,500 residential students, 1,700 employees. That's a lot of people, and it's not like a city. We're more responsible in a way. I mean, we need to, we people, they give us their children to take care of. You're about ready to.
Yes, my daughter is coming there as a freshman.
Another
Full
Osprey.
disclosure. Yes,
Another
yes.
Osprey. But so we feel a sense of obligation to try to provide as great an educational experience, but also a co-curricular experience. My great concern for young people your daughter's age, okay, is that they've missed, a good portion of their senior year, a good portion of their junior year.
Yes.
And we want to do everything we possibly can to give them a normal kind of experience in their first year of college.
Sure. Whatever normal is these days, it has changed so much. And I know it was challenging for everyone. My son was at Rowan last year, and so many kids missed out on so much. And it's the social, we need to be face to face with people.
Yes.
And we're all trying to do that. And I know that you work so hard to make that happen. What goes into making the decisions? Do you have a point person in the state that you speak with, or who makes the final decision? How do you know what's right, what's not right? How do you figure that out?
Well, I always have to be guided by the law. Okay, so that's important.
Start with that.
Let's start with the law.
Start with the law.
Have to abide by the law. Okay, which we do. And then, of course, like I said, one of the things we're very close, and I personally very close with the former Secretary of Higher Education, Zakiya Smith Ellis, who was the secretary when this started, and the current one, Brian Bridges. And so they're the people I interact with the most. Now, I also interact with several people in the governor's office and the governor himself on situations involving, because in addition to being president of Stockton, I'm the chair of the New Jersey President's Council, and have been. That's what I inherited, the pandemic in that role, and that's the chair of all the presidents at the colleges and universities in New Jersey. So that group, so I have to rely a lot on the state, a lot on the Department of Health in the state, of course, a lot on the county. I mean, county government in Stockton are very close in situations that involve something like the pandemic, CDC guidelines, federal guidelines, and the like. But when push comes to shove, at the very, very end of the day, I make the final decision. I have a great team My executive vice president, chief of staff, Dr. Susan Davenport is, is a point person for me here, and other key advisors in that regard. Obviously, my legal team and things like that. But ultimately, the decision rests with the president for many of these things.
Absolutely. And do you hear pushback from any of the students or parents regarding some of the decisions you've made?
Always there's never, one of the things that you learn after all the years that I've been in public life, and this is very public, as a president of the university, but all the years I've been in public life, you're not going to please everyone all the time. What you got to do is please the majority of the people all the time. And I think that what we do is we've done the vast majority. And you tend to hear from the ones who are against what you're doing, or not against, but they oppose or they think differently than you do. And you don't really always hear from the ones who support what you're doing. But when you do, believe me, that is really encouraging. And the silent majority is truly that. The silent majority supports what you're doing. They know the intention is a good one. There's one advantage having been in the inaugural class at this institution. I don't think there's anyone who knows it better than me. And most of the people who entrust their children here, or they themselves come, they may question my decision, but never my intention. I don't think anyone questions. I wouldn't do what I believe is best for Stockton, and that's an advantage of having the history that I do.
That is absolutely, and of course, nobody would question your intentions. You always have the students first, isn't that your motto? You always have their best interests at heart. So that's true. I want to fast forward to today, but before we get to that, I just would like to take a minute to talk about mental health and how it has affected the students and the faculty, and what you're doing to address that.
Well, yeah, the students, both have been really, it's been so trying for them. And in many respects, I think the students in some respect are more adaptable, more flexible, but it's gotten too long now. That's why they really got to get back to a sense of normalcy, and they miss that social interaction. I've been very worried about the faculty and staff, because this is really, in addition to, remember, many of them have children themselves, and they had to, jockey work in a whole new environment, as well as taking care of the kids, if in fact the kids were in school.
Oh yeah, we're all used to that. The kids screaming in the back, the dog barking. I mean, this is where we are now.
And so the mental health aspect of it. So we've done, in addition to providing more counseling, we've done a lot of telecounseling, telehealth, the kinds of things that you see going on in society at all. We mirrored. So we hired those kinds of entities to help us with the load, because the workload was incredible. Try to set up peer groups between students, as well as peer groups between faculty and staff, and just keep encouraging that we know how hard you've worked. We know how much you're giving. We've tried to, take the pressure off of them in every which way possible. We spent millions, literally, making this place safe, putting up the plexiglass, ensuring social distancing, wearing the mask, everything, you're washing up, vaxing up, and all the different kinds of things that we've tried to encourage. Keep in mind, we also, last summer, from about I guess it was May through maybe August, we housed the Atlantic Care. I'm pointing over there because that's where the Atlantic, in my office, that's where it is. The Atlantic Care personnel, at one of our dormitories, so that they didn't have to go home, because they were the frontline people. So they were living in what's called our GALP residence halls, and then going back and forth to the hospitals right across the street. So we were housing hospital personnel. Our nursing students were assisting, all the way through the vaccinations and everything else. So we've been engaged in eradicating the best we can COVID in the region, but as well as making sure that the people who are doing it are, get some R&R, needed R&R, and
so important. And mental health has been in the news so much more. If you could call that there's anything positive that has come out of COVID, I think it has shined a light on the importance of mental health. And I've become so much more aware of it in my 30 some years doing this as a reporter, that it's not mental health, it's not physical health, it's total health. It's all together, and it's part of it's part of us. And it's important for us to give it the same weight as we would a physical ailment.
one thing, I'm happy you brought that up. One thing I did to keep my mental health, because I knew I would, I have to go down with the ship. I said, no matter what happens, I'm coming into work every day. And so,
God bless you for that.
so I was really safe. I had my both my homes. Okay, my home with my wife. Okay, and this home. Okay, and so that's the only two places I went nowhere else. So I was fine in that regard. But I started literally on a treadmill every morning for an hour and 10 minutes before I can. Very early in the morning, clear my head, just rest, get back into. I did not gain weight during the pandemic, so I really worked on my physical health, which I felt would help support my mental health because it was so stressful. And there's no science behind this. There's no, when I say science about how to handle it, there's great science behind, what went through the vaccination and all that, and what CDC is doing. But there's no playbook to go through. Here's how you handle a pandemic like this. There's no tabletop exercise we could do.
Okay. Exactly.
All the things that we felt we understood, okay, were questioned, but good has come from that. Good, meaning, like, for example, the communication between and among, like, presidents have never been better, but not just the presidents, but under the presidents. So the vice presidents for student affairs in the whole state would get together on Zoom conferences and try to talk through the issues. So there's been more collaboration and cooperation between and among universities and colleges, whether they're community colleges, universities, research universities, private colleges, just so we're all know what each other's doing. There's been a great amount of support in that regard, which would have never happened because we're competitive. We're competitive.
Of course, but you had a common enemy to fight now.
Exactly.
So that's what happens.
This made us much more likely to work together. And I think that's going to be a long-term benefit. And then obviously how we utilize technology. And I'll go into that later or now, but how that has really changed our ability to reach out to populations that we haven't been reaching out to. For example, we're, 95%, I said, of our courses are face-to-face, but 95% of our students are between traditional age. Now we can expand our programs because we have done more online to, non-traditional students, which long-term are going to become the traditional students. And that is over 25 and over who want to come back and get more skills or want to come back and get a credential. Doesn't have to be a master's degree. It could be continuing ed. It could be a certification of some sort.
And it's not so out of the norm now to use technology. Before, everyone was, how do you get on this Zoom?
Absolutely.
And what do you do it? Now we all get it. Everyone gets it now.
And exactly. And there are advantages. One of the things I have noticed, meetings, although there's still nothing like face-to-face.
I agree.
But meetings, the attendance is great because you don't have to worry about travel. So when I met with the 50,
you can't get out of it either.
I know. You're like this. I keep bragging to my colleagues. I said, I'm the only president who's ever chaired this that gets the kind of attendance. Because no one has to go anywhere. Because normally we have to go to Rutgers, we have to go somewhere else. So everyone shows up because they can't get out of it.
And you'd hate for them to stand up. You know, everyone's wearing shorts underneath, right?
Oh yeah, exactly.
That's where we are.
Tease each other about that, but it's a lot of fun.
So do you see the future of education as having, I don't know what percentage, but a huge online component? I mean, it's already headed that way now.
I don't think it'll be completely on. In other words, hybrid. A lot more. One day you're in class, one day you're online, and that kind of stuff. But much more. I don't. Nothing. Well, let me restate that. Certain academic programs are lend itself to online education, like business programs. You can do a lot of those programs online. You can't do labs online. You can try to do labs online. So remember, Stockton produces 22% of the STEM graduates in the whole state college sector. Okay, that means we spent all that money building.
Beautiful new science centers.
New 2 science buildings, a health sciences building. That's our quad. That's state-of-the-art equipment. And like I said to the legislature yesterday, I was with several members of the legislature. I said, I didn't build all those buildings to be online. We
want people here.
And you didn't pay for all those buildings for us to be online. So I said, but there are things we can do to enhance. For example, let's say we, and there's a lot of folks who want, more opportunity for remote work. Now, let's say our advising offices are open, typical business hours, 9 to 5. But let's say we decide one or two advisors can work from home. Well, they wouldn't work from home 9 to 5. They would work from maybe 1 to 9. Okay, so that you extend the hours so that students will benefit. And no, I'm open to any kind of iteration so long as students benefit, meaning that they get more services as a result of that shift than less services or the same services. Does that
Yes.
make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think business is going that same route as well. You see that there's a lot of hybrid now, people going to the office. It's funny because I'd love to work at home. And then once they worked at home for a year and they had pajamas on all day, they
Right.
were like, I'd kind of like to get out. So
Right.
you're seeing a hybrid now.
And hybrid works. Let me say, as someone who, I don't hire as many people as I used to, because I really only hire the cabinet, underneath is other people hire and then recommend. But if you don't see a person, if you don't see them and you don't interact with them, they're not going to be on your radar. I don't care how good they are. And that part of why I can't mentor them. I can't teach them. I can't work with them like I do. If I hire, a newer, I don't want to say younger because you're not allowed to use age, but if I hire a newer, okay, senior member of my staff, right? Part of my job is to make sure that person is mentored appropriately, understands the profession appropriately. And I can't do that if I don't see them. There's spontaneity of me walking into their office and saying, hey, how's your day been? You have any issues? That's all gone. Okay.
Yes.
So don't underestimate the importance of that in an environment, in a business, our business,
Yes.
which is a face-to-face business by its very nature.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. But it is nice that people are understanding that, we might be able to do it as a hybrid for any
Right.
business, which is
Exactly.
good. So let's talk about today because I saw that there's a mask mandate in place and I tell my
Today
daughter
was
who's coming in the fall and she's like, "Oh, really?"
have to.
Got to
Well,
be honest.
I
Nobody
know.
we thought we got rid of them
Oh, are you
and
kidding me?
it's heartbreaking.
Wait a minute, I got to show you. I pulled these all out today. I pulled these all out. They're all in my masks.
We thought we could burn them and some people did burn them and now we're
I
bringing
felt
them
like
back.
burning them. And yeah,
Yeah.
well, as you well know, okay. I mean, the Delta variant is serious. It's serious now. What concerns me and is that it's impacting younger people now. We knew it would because
Mhm.
my age group, yeah, those of us who survived, and I didn't have it, but we got it as quickly as we could. Over 90% of senior citizens
Yep, got
are
vaccinated.
vaccinated, and so I put in the student mandate in May, and I put in the employee and I want to thank my faculty union and professional staff unions who 100% behind me doing this. For all the managers, temporary employees, faculty and staff, they have the vaccinations, of required vaccines. But here's the problem is that, I'm going to have, this is contagious and the variants are contagious. And until we know how people react to it have the vaccine, particularly young people, okay, I want to have a mask mandate until I'm comfortable and the science suggests that maybe we can back off later on. But remember, and this is what scares me about this as the president of the university, and my colleagues would certainly confirm this, is that this is the least likely time for the variant to spread. It gets worse when we close the doors, it's winter and things like that. Remember, we're still outside 70% of the time, or as much as we can be outside. So I worry about that. So we need to have the masks along with the vaccination to at least have some sense of security. We're not going to have a breakout here because we were, look, knock on wood, we had the highest percentage of students residing on campus of any college in New Jersey last year. Highest percentage, okay? 75% of our normal population on campus were living here. And we had no major breakouts at all.
That's
so
amazing.
we practiced, it is
Yes.
amazing. I don't want to roll the dice with the variants because I don't know what the variant.
And that's the problem with this. This is new for everyone. We don't know enough about it.
Right.
And better to be safe than not safe.
Exactly.
Better be safe than sorry. So I know kids aren't going to really
No,
like
they're
it,
gonna
but
make
at
some
least
noise.
they're back in class.
And that's
great.
exactly.
We don't want to have to go back to the online if we can help it.
And we know, and here's the thing is that the least advantaged kids are hurt the most by it too, because they didn't have, many of them went home. Even if we provided them with the laptops, and we did, okay, they didn't have the Wi-Fi capabilities.
Yes.
They didn't. So we got a little Wi-Fi. So it was so what more privileged folks like us take for granted, we forget. And so
Yes.
the least advantage are always hurt the most, and they were. That's why we tried to keep as many of them on the campus as possible, because we knew they would be fed well. We knew we had the medical resources. We knew they had the technological support. We knew they had all the kinds of things that would support them. And
And
I
I
thank the
also,
governor for giving
yes,
Stockton the flexibility to let us do that.
that's great. And I hope we don't have to go back to it, but I know you'll, if we do, you'll be set up for it this time around, which is a lot
Exactly.
easier.
Far better than the first time around.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for everyone. But I know, I also believe in my heart that a younger person, especially a freshman, my daughter starting
Yeah,
school there, learns better in person. I know for
absolutely.
her, she can talk to the teacher better. It's easier. And I think teachers, they find it easier to
No, oh,
communicate to
no
their
question.
students
No
face to
question.
face.
My faculty are cannot wait to be back in the classroom. They tried it, they experimented with it, they'll use some of it in what they're doing now, but no, they miss that energy. Remember, we have the highest proportion of full-time tenure and tenure track faculty. These are people dead. This is their primary profession, their way of life, and they want to interact with students. So I think
Absolutely.
it's great. And listen, the reason I'm sitting here now is the faculty who interacted with me way back when at the Mayflower Hotel and when we first came over here. So, that's the reason I'm sitting here. They gave me all the time and energy and attention, far more than I deserved. And I tried to suck it all in. And I was very fortunate, that I had that kind of an experience. And I want to make sure any student who comes to Stockton continues to have that kind of
Well,
experience.
you can see you're so very passionate about it, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about the future of Stockton. But before I go there, just talk to me about some of the political situations going on with masks and vaccines. And are you hearing that now, going into this new school year?
You know what? I, I do hear, but that's the kind of thing I sort of put blinders on. Number one, I'm bipartisan by nature. I have, people on both sides of the aisle, both sides of the spectrum that I can sit down and talk with, and I'm comfortable in that environment. I think they're comfortable in that environment. Once in a while, you get a few extremes that you have to deal with the extremists, and you deal with it. Okay. Again, having been in the business as long as I have, I don't let it really get me down. You make decisions based upon what you think is right. If you make more right decisions than wrong decisions, you'll be fine.
You're
But
doing
yeah, you're
okay.
hearing
Yeah.
noise. You'll be fine.
Yes.
I'll get the occasion, whatever the situation may be. And remember, in the midst of this was the George Floyd matter.
Yes.
Okay, which was,
Yes.
so there was a lot of other things going on at the same time, which caused, even more energy, political energy.
Yes.
And
It
yeah,
was a difficult year,
oh yeah.
2020.
And so,
Yeah.
but I think, listen, as long as I'm never concerned about well-intentioned political beliefs. I'm only concerned about the ones that I will ignore are those where I don't think it's well-intentioned, when it looks like it's an attack rather than trying to espouse what you really believe.
Right. Well, that's a good point. So let's end on a positive note.
Okay.
Where is Stockton going in the future? How are things today? You have a huge enrollment. It's
Yeah.
growing. It's an amazing, beautiful campuses. Just
I'm
done a great
excited.
job.
I mean, you know that phase two, which is the next set of dormitories in Atlantic City. The Eldridge building is down. We took it down brick by brick because we couldn't implode it, and so that's going to be coming up pretty soon. You're going to be seeing more steel. Remember, our first building, phase one, was the first steel in over a decade that went up. More steel is going to be going up. I'd love to see a coastal resiliency and marine science center at Gardner's Basin. That I would love to have Stockton have that. I think Gardner's Basin is ripe for a blue economy. If we can get it dredged, get the clammers back there, get the restaurants back there.
Oh, that would be great. Yes.
Why
Please do
not get
that.
the ferries coming in? Get the ferries
Yeah.
coming in from New York so we can get the millennials. Remember, the reason I always tease my North Jersey friends, I said the only reason Asbury Park and Long Branch and those have done so well is because that's where the train stops. If we can get people down to Atlantic City, okay, easily, particularly the millennials, we can get them down to Atlantic City, and that's the way to do it. Could you imagine a Friday night ferries coming down to Atlantic City with millennials? They stay here, they buy condos, gamble, then go back on Sunday night.
I
There's
love
no
that.
reason that can't happen. And so, so the college, part of what I believe the role of Stockton is, and the state does too, thank goodness, because in 26, I actually became the president in 2015, but in
Oh,
2016,
I'm
that's
sorry,
okay.
my mistake.
No, that was, it's just a month or two. At 2016, we were named an anchor institution. So there's an obligation on our part to not only build and provide educational opportunity. That's who we are. That's what we do. Forget the brick and mortar. We're about teaching and learning. But also what our responsibility is to be an economic engine for the region, and that if we can do it, and like I've always said to the state, this time, if you want us to be an economic engine, you're going to help us. You're not going to just say Stockton, and they have. The governor, Senate President Sweeney, all of it, both Republican and Democrats have supported Stockton's growth in the city. I'd like to continue. And then phase 3 would be that big parking lot next to our dorms, which is called Lot 21, which is now a huge parking lot, a full city block. That would be phase 3. That would be a spectacular multi-purpose kind of area that would include housing, some academic space, but might include an Apple store. It might include, other kinds of things for the region. So that's what I'm looking there. Want to expand our athletic fields here. I mean, put up an athletic facility on Pomona Road, and also bump out Big Blue to add some more weight rooms and things like that over there. So and I want someone out there who would like to donate and be the 4th building of our quad. I'm ready to build one on there.
Okay, there's a shout out to anybody who would like to do. Wow, you're not too busy. Oh, no wonder you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You need to.
It's great stuff. Listen, you only have this one opportunity. The job as a president is, and I said this at the beginning, is that each day, my job is each day to make that degree more valuable. When that Stockton degree, so that Stockton degree today is more valuable. I'm not going to say it was a better degree, because no one's got a better degree than I got here, but it's more valuable out there in the market than it was then. Okay. Yes. And when I no longer can do that, somebody else should come in and do that. And that's my goal.
I say this from my heart, because I know a lot of people who went to Stockton. Several of my cousins graduated, friends of mine. I have never heard somebody say a negative word. I really haven't. They have had wonderful experiences at Stockton. They've really loved it.
It's a sense of community. And you know what? It's because of the mistake. And the mistake was, it's amazing how fate works out. And when you think about it, as you know, we were not supposed to open up in a hotel, in basically a condemned hotel at St. James in Tennessee called the Mayflower. There was a roofer strike here. And so we couldn't get finished on time. So think about it. So, and just envision this. When you go away on a conference, okay, and you stay with like your fellow participants for just 2 days or 3 days. You eat together, you go to workshops together, you may go out and at nighttime together. You bond like this. It's like it's an experience. Imagine the first semester that the faculty, students, staff, people lived, ate, and took classes in a hotel together, and that built a sense of community that we then brought over to here, that we've never lost. And that sense of community, that's what you're talking, that's what people feel, is that sense of community. And all you have to do is come on this campus, this one or AC, and you feel it the second you go on there, because it's like a sense of family. And that we've never lost, no matter how much we've grown. When I started, it was 1,000 students and 50 faculty. That's what it was.
That's amazing. Hotel. That is amazing. And it's such a great story. And then you've come full circle and went back to Atlantic City.
Well, that's what, and it was funny because people thought I was nuts, because we had still owned the showboat. And I said, I don't care that we'll get rid of the showboat. I said, we'll sell it and thank Bart. I'll give Bart Blatstein hugs and shouts out, because he bought the showboat and has done great things with it. But I said, we're moving forward in Atlantic City either way, because we knew, okay, that Atlantic City was part of our birth, and it's going to be part of Stockton for as long as there is a Stockton. And one thing, there's another great thing about being a university president, and I've said this before publicly. I said, I don't know what will be in Atlantic City 200 years from now, 300 years from now, but I do know one thing. There'll be 2 entities that will be in Atlantic City, the Atlantic Ocean and Stockton. Those 2 things will be in Atlantic City. I don't know what else will be there.
And imagine going to school with the Atlantic Ocean as your backyard. What could be better than that?
Unbelievable.
So these students are very lucky, and you've done such a wonderful job. And
great
thank
team.
you so much for spending this time with me. I know you're so busy.
But this is wonderful, and great to see you. You look great.
Oh,
Your
so do you.
looks
Thank
great.
you.
So it's great. Keep
Thank
up the great work you're doing. Living healthy.
Yes, well, I am, and I do want to mention, I'm glad you mentioned that you relieved your stress by going on the treadmill. You use some fitness and exercise, and that's a great way to do it. And I think many of us are realizing how, or a lot of people are learning that it's so important to do for our overall health. So
It
thanks for
really
saying
is.
that as well.
Okay.
Thanks again for being with us today, Dr. Harvey Kesselman, President of Stockton University. And thank you for joining me for Living Well with Robin Stoloff, empowering you to live a healthier life. Don't forget to subscribe to be updated on our most recent episode. I hope to see you again next time. Until then, please stay safe and keep living well.